Hey, what's up, guys? In this story, I'm going to tell you about the time I operated a large magic mushroom cultivation and made chocolate bars out of them, and it became very popular and very profitable, making thousands of dollars a month. But I would just want to start by saying I don't condone the use or encourage the use of magic mushrooms, and it's not something I do anymore. This was back in 2014, and magic mushrooms can cause confusion and disassociation and lose focus and lose clarity of thought. So in that sense, I don't recommend it, but it's still an interesting experience regardless. The whole psychedelic experience is a very interesting thing. But to get right to it, so I started by cultivating magic mushrooms, about a quarter pound at a time, which is 4 ounces, and would sell it to my friends. But very quickly, the demand for more became more than what I was growing. So I upped the operation a little bit, and I was using popcorn, of all things, popcorn kernels, to use as a medium to grow it, to cultivate it, a substrate you call it. And I would do it in these large bags. And then it grows like a fuzz, like a cotton almost, it looks like. It's called mycelium. So it's really big. And then you transport that into a fruiting chamber, which is essentially a humidity-controlled room, which I just use a large tent, a tarp area, with humidifiers, and it was all had like monitors controlling, make sure the humidity levels were all dialed, and then they would grow the fruit bodies, which were the mushrooms themselves. And I grew 3 different types of strains: Golden Teachers, B+, and Amazonian strains. They're all very good, all very big-ass mushrooms. Anyway, so I was selling them to my friends, and one of my friends, Steve, was making chocolate bars out of them. And Steve is a very creative guy, very smart guy. Like, he builds his own tools, he built his own axes, he makes his own pottery, does all kinds of things, raises his own chickens and things like that, okay? Well, anyway, he made chocolate bars essentially by, in this large pan, would fill it with brown sugar, and then had this like stencil, which was a wooden stencil of a chocolate bar, and they pressed it in the brown sugar, and it would make an imprint, right? And then he would melt this chocolate, which was, he got really good quality Swiss chocolate, and ground up the mushrooms into a fine powder, mixed it in with the chocolate, and then poured it in the mold, and then put that in the freezer, and it would harden up, and he'd have a chocolate bar that was 4 squares by 8 squares, so it was 32 squares in total. So I saw this, and he gave one to me. Well, I gave me some squares, and I was eating them. I'm like, dude, like, you gotta make more of these. Make me, so I gave him a few ounces to do it. Like, make some chocolate bars for me. Sure. He made those, and then I was at a party on the beach. This is in British Columbia, and we're partying on the beach, and I had a bunch of these chocolate bars in a cooler because I didn't want them to melt, right? And I was selling them to people, and each square was a half a gram. So if you eat a half square, you kind of get a buzz, but you eat a gram, yeah, you're starting to get a little high. Eat 2 grams, you're really high. So that's like 4 squares. People were eating tons of squares and loving them. Very popular. Made a lot of contacts that day. So I'm like, Steve, make me more of these, please. Threw him a bunch more shrooms. Every time I would give him like more for himself for the work, right? He was working essentially for mushrooms and himself. So he was just pumping out chocolate bars, and before I knew it, the demand for those became really big. Like, I'm like keep bothering him. So he's like, dude, I can only make so many at a time. I'm like, no, but we got to keep going. And we were splitting profits at this point. I'm like, I'll give you half the profits. Just keep making them. And so essentially, I had this mini fridge that I just stockpiled a shit ton in. Right? One weekend, 12 hours a day, we're just making them chocolate bars out of mushrooms. I would blend all the different strains together. It didn't even matter what. I was just like packing mushrooms in his coffee blender, powder, more We had this big bowl full of just mushroom powder. We were measuring out the amount of the weight needed to for each chocolate bar. You know, put it in, and then made the molds, poured it in the molds. Bam. The other thing we did was we actually made like proper wrappers, so it looked kind of more professional. First, we just used like construction paper, tin foil, and then like a construction paper outside. But then we actually upped to actually have kind of like a label that was kind of a holographic label, so it looked cool. Well, some people were wanting to buy like 10 bars at a time, right? And we could only fill out so many orders. Specifically, one of my friends who would, in one sitting, would eat like a half ounce of mushrooms at a time. So he was just eating shit ton of them, right? And I gotta mention, the profit margin I was making was huge, because it really cost me nothing to make these mushrooms, right? At this point, I was creating pounds at a time of them. And we were selling them chocolate bars, $5 a square essentially. So 5 times 32, 100, like almost $170. I don't know, I can't do the math off the top of my head, per chocolate bar. Selling massive amounts. Just like the profit margin was essentially 100%. But I had to split the profits with Steve. Well, in British Columbia, they have the festival season in the summertime, right? And there's a lot of festivals that go on, a lot of people go. So, and people wanted to buy them to sell there. So we're having our own like distributors, essentially, within music festivals, that in some cases we would front them, which means we gave them a bunch in advance and then they give me the money after. I trusted these guys. And because they didn't have the money to pay for them all up front. They paid some up front, but it's like, here, take 20 chocolate bars. Go to a music festival, just make sure they're in a cooler, and you're good to go. And they come back and fork over a bunch of money back to us. Right? And then these guys would go to every music festival, so literally they would just, the whole summer, they didn't even work, they're just hippies, they just tour around to music festivals. Some of them worked at them, some of them DJ'd there, right? And it blew up. At this point, I was bringing in thousands of dollars a week to myself. Like, between me and Steve, we're splitting it, and we upped the operation a bit. We bought special trays to do it in, and but it's still the same basic process, where we molded out in brown sugar the chocolate bars, poured it in to the mold, and then frozen them. And eventually I had to stop because I moved and I went to massage school. But I always wonder what it would have been like if I kept going. At the level we were doing it, it was almost becoming, I call heat score, which is bringing on heat, which means bringing on potentially police investigation on where these chocolate bars coming from, because they were just becoming that popular. Like, I think in total we made a few thousand of them, and it was up to, all right, maybe that's a bit of an overestimate, but we made a lot of them. And so we were at that point, I think it was good that I stopped, because if I would have got caught for that, potentially would have been like 2 years in jail for doing that. And there was a bit of a risk, because people would eat literally like half the chocolate bar at one time and not realize how much they were doing, and then potentially getting into dangerous situations, right? Because I don't know if you guys know, if you eat like a half ounce of mushrooms, like, shit gets weird on that, and shit can get dangerous, like dissociative. Like, if you drove on that, you'd be fucked. You'd probably die, and or drown, or who knows. So yeah, there was a bit of a risk there. And then if somebody found out that, you know, the police investigated and found the actual chocolate bars and this, and then asked around, I don't know, it could have gotten back to us. So I think it was good that we stopped, and I went and pursued massage, and that's what I could do now. So anyway, what do you guys think about that story? I really enjoyed growing mushrooms. Like, it's just something like that was cool about it. It's an interesting thing, and just to grow your own things in general, like there's something appreciated, and it's really crazy how they actually grow. Like, the whole process of it grows the mycelium, which is like these webs that grow through them. In this case, I grew it in like the popcorn kernels, and you just had to treat the popcorn kernels first, boil them and strain them, wash all the starch off, and then sterilize them, because any type of bacteria or mold can grow really fast in this substrate, so you have to sterilize it real well. And then you introduce the mycelium from an outside source, or spores, mushroom spores, and then very quickly this like web network growth, and it's really trippy actually. It overtakes the substrate in like this fuzz, this really dense white fuzz, and then you transport it to the fruiting chamber, and then the actual mushrooms grow within a matter of days, really quickly. Huge mushrooms, bigger than my hand, some of them, like massive. Anyway, what do you guys think about that? Have you guys ever tried mushrooms? Is it something that's you think people should do or shouldn't do? Is there a lot of people find them really enlightening and fun? I've tried them before. I don't want to. If I know where I could get mushrooms right now, I would. I don't even want to. I have no desire to do them anymore. Being there, done that. I like to now focus on things that actually improve my mental clarity more. I think I knew a lot of people who did them, a lot of them, and they seemed like they got a bit lost in life, because it's dissociative. If they're eating those every day, you know, you're not living in reality, I think. Anyway, what do you guys think about that? Leave in the comments below. Peace.